little tricky because it's supposed to be a general model, but it also, we wanted to say, okay, it could be used in parking lots, it could be used in static cameras or dashboard cameras. So that will dictate, you know, the angle of the camera, what kind of cars you're including. Like, we're not annotating motorcycles or cars without license plates, or, you know, etc. So then the second round we did was we went on Pixabay and Pexels and Unsplash and got freely available video and images. And that those images were things like, see, this guy is a European data set. So, I mean, this is good. It has some cars and license plate, but also has these really big buses that are very specific to that region. And we kind of wondered, should we include those or should we not? And also you can see, like, you're going to get a few different pictures of trucks and buses, but you're only going to get this one car, and it's all from the back. Another one we picked was this guy. You can see there's lots and lots of cars. This is going to be a pain to annotate. And I didn't realize it at first, but you have to think, if you only annotate half of these cars, the model's going to get really confused because it will think, oh, this is a car, but this isn't a car. And then your model won't be able to detect cars. You have to annotate everything in the image that looks like a car. If there's a billboard right here that has a picture of a car on it, you should annotate that as well, because as far as the model's concerned, that is a car. So this was good at first because it had these license plates head on, you know, very clear, but then we realized that the whole video is also just this constant streaming. It will only be really these two angles. It will be lots and lots of cars, very hard to annotate. They get occluded way back here. That's going to be kind of weird. So we did include some of these in the data set, but we had to vary it a lot more in addition to this. And then this one has a section of the video that is just, there's a lot of dead space. You can see, like, this, there's no cars here. That all has to be trimmed out. So that's fine, but you really have to go through each of the videos yourself and either cut that stuff out, or you'll have to skip it when you're annotating, and that will be a bit of a pain. So those are just some considerations. Does anyone have any questions yet? Are we okay to continue?
Yeah, we're okay with questions right now.
Okay. So the second round of video, which is really, I guess, the third round of model training, in the sense of going back to the drawing board, Jason and myself and Todd, we all took our own videos, and we kind of collaborated on who was going to take what kind of stuff. Todd had some stuff from a parking lot. Jason, I think you put some stuff on a stroller and walked the camera down a street, and also used a dashboard kind of camera. I took some video off of like an overpass to get like a high angle head-on view, and then standing in front of an apartment building. And some of these we used and some of them we didn't. So these are some that Jason took. You can see it's like low angle. You get some different angles of the cars coming from the front or the side. And so this is good. You have lots of pictures of cars kind of far away. And we also noticed that the quality was a little different between all of our different cameras, and that's okay too, because you want to, this was a general model and you wanted it to be able to kind of have a variety, but in general you'll want to use the camera that will be using the model to collect your images. So if you have a, you know, kind of blurry feed, you're going to want to collect all your data using that camera, and then your model will be able to detect things that were taken with that camera. Here's some other ones. This was kind of like a mid-range. This one was okay. This video was kind of a pain because I just was waiting for cars to come up the street, so maybe that wasn't a great one. I had to cut a lot of images out of that one. This one we didn't use because it was a little too high, and you can't really see the license plate so well. So those are just some considerations. Todd put together a really good article on data collection tips. So that is what's pasted in the chat, and you can go there. It covers everything from lighting and weather and angle, objects being occluded, should you annotate them or not, or where should you draw those boundaries. So that's a good place to go if you're not really familiar with data annotation in general and you want to get some good foundations. And we covered a little bit in the introduction to model training article, which is on the blog as well. All right, so those were some of the considerations with data annotation. If we're okay, I can show you now how to set up Cvat, and then we'll get started annotating. So what you want to do is open up Docker, which if you were part of the model training webinar yesterday, we talked about how you have to configure Docker. You're also going to have to configure it for working with Cvat. So what you do is you go into resources and then file sharing. And then we just want to add this path. So what you do is you click on a path right here and you just manually type it in. And I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. You type in application/alwaysai.app, and then you press enter. And it should pop up, and then this will be blue, and you'll say apply and restart. And then that will take a few minutes. Once you've done that, and you have the latest installation of Always AI, you should be completely good to go. And then you go into your terminal, and all you have to do is that. And so if you do AAI annotate before you fix your Cvat proxy, it will get stuck here, and it'll say error mounts denied. So if you've done that, if you see that error, all you need to do is open up this little Docker guy right here and fix your preferences. And then you should be good to go. Once you do that, you have to open it up in Chrome. And so I've done that here, and I have created a task because it takes a while to upload all the images. So if you haven't done so and you do want to annotate along with me, you can download that image data set now. And then we're going to create a new task. So first you give your task a name. I did Hacky Hour. Maybe we'll do Hacky Hour 2. And then you're going to create your labels. I have created labels with spaces in them, with uppercase and lowercase. I would recommend not doing spaces because with training, that will complicate your training commands. It will be a little weird. So I would say use underscores or single words only. So what you do is you click add a label, and see I've already done license plate like that. And then you do continue to add another one, and you can do vehicle. Originally we did car, and then when we saw those buses and there's sedans and there's trucks, we figured, okay, we're going to do vehicle now. Another thing you can do is change labels in Cvat. However, you cannot change labels and then try and smush labels together. So if you did truck and car, you couldn't then change them both to vehicle, although you could change them yourself with a script or some other means after you've exported them. So if you're wondering if you should do a more specific label or a more general label, it's kind of a judgment call. I would say if you know that you want a general model like this, go general. Vehicle works perfectly for license plate detection, but for some other models we've done, I've done really specific labels, and that way I don't lose any data if I want to change my mind later and say, okay, these two things are really different. I'm glad I didn't annotate them the same way, because then I'll have to go back and manually change them all, and that will be hard and no fun. So for this one, we did vehicle and license plate, which would probably work well for you as well. And when you're done, you click done. And then you can either click here and upload them, or you can do drag and drop. So I've got my little finder guy. For the images, you just go in here, select them all, and then you would drag and drop. But I don't want it to hang there and make you guys wait. So I'm going to stop the demo there for that portion. So to get to your tasks, once you've created your task, it'll say task created. If you do run into any issues with a failure, if for some reason your Cvat or your computer didn't have enough memory, you just take this data set and select as many images as you think you can handle, and just subset those out and create a couple of different tasks. And that's not a problem. When you go to train, you can train on multiple data sets, or you can merge them ahead of time. So that's not an issue. And it can even be good, because that way, you can kind of break up your tasks into little manageable things. You don't have to worry about finding your spot when you go back in. You can just be like, okay, task 1, 100 images, I'll get that done in an hour, come back later and do some more. Are we doing okay for questions so far? So then, okay. So then you can open your task, and there's the new UI and the regular UI. I have noticed that the new UI doesn't have cuboid, which is not a problem for us.
Oh, Lila, I'm just gonna jump in. Someone just posted a question.
Okay.
So before you kind of change.
Yeah, definitely.
Could you have created a new label for a different object using this model? Example, a person.
A new label for a different object using this model. Do you mean like if I wanted to annotate like headlamps or headlights on the car? Is that kind of thing? Or do you mean like, do you have to use vehicle and license plate? You can use car and some other version of license plate, like plate, or is that answering your question, or is there a slight clarification to the question?
I was asking like recognizing a person. So David, if you want to jump on.
You could add person. Yeah, if you want to have it recognize people as well and your images contain people, then you can add another label for people and add more data or more images that contain people and then annotate cars, license plate, and people. And you don't have to annotate, like not every image has to have a person and a car. And if you don't annotate anything in an image, it will just not download in the data set. So it's okay to skip frames or have only some labels present in some frames. If a car and a license plate are often seen together, but your data set does not have that, it might cause some issues later when you run the data set. And like if all of your data sets have cars and people, but then you run the model and they're not together, that might cause some issues. But if you know that you want a general model that always can detect people and plates, you just need to, and cars, you just need to make sure that whatever you want your model to be able to perform on, your data set includes those images in the combinations that you expect to see them in and the angles you expect to see them in. But you can add as many labels as you want. I would say that I have tried training this framework, the model training tool, on a model that has lots of labels, and at a certain point it will not perform as well. But 3 or 4 or 5, and you can ask on Discord. Some of our other colleagues are a little bit more well informed about different versions of models, but I would say, yeah, if you want to add people, or if you want to add in even like a 4th or a 5th label, that should be fine. And it doesn't have to be exactly as we did it for this model. Although I would say you'd have to change your data set a little bit, because the data set I'm providing and that we're providing here is just pretty much cars and license plates. That answer the question? Maybe a little too much?
Yep, David said that's perfect.
Okay, great. Okay, great. So this is the new UI. I'm going to switch back to the old one just because I know it a little bit better. But you can pretty much, you want to pick your label. Then you want to pick your points. 2 points works well. 4 points, you have to put all 4 points. But if you do 2 points, then shape will be the equivalent of annotate in the other version. And track is the interpolation mode. So you can use it across the next frame and the frame until you choose to stop watching it. So pretty much you'll just do this. And see, it says license plate here, and can't quite, I have to move my Cvat browser. You can change it like this. So if you make a mistake, no big deal. If you want to get rid of it, you remove it, and then it's gone. Removing it will delete the annotation, not just delete it from this frame. So if you deleted it on like a 3rd frame, it will remove everything leading up to that. So you don't want to do that. And I'm going to save so it doesn't complain to me. And I'm going to go back up to tasks and do this in the original one so you guys can see them both. So this is the original layout, and it does have a couple more options in terms of type. It has this cuboid one, which we won't be using for training models as the tool currently exists. That's not the type of annotation you want, but I just wanted to show you the different types you have. So for training models with Always AI, you want annotation or interpolation, and you want to use box. That's the one you want. So what you do when you select box and you select annotation, that will give you the option of creating an annotation just for this one frame. And that's fine for this data set because you can see the next frame looks very different. There's no way the objects are going to be the same. But starting here, there's a few that are kind of in sequence. And in that case, you're going to want to select Interpolation. And that lets you keep your bounding boxes on the frame for a few frames. And that will save you a lot of time. That was a bit of a trial and error for me. So let's try it for the annotation, this one. So you have license plate. Then we want to say create shape. And then you've got this cool little box. And like so, and see, it's not quite dead center. You can tweak it to what you think is the perfect, license plate bounding box there. And then for vehicle, you switch your label, create your shape, and then you want to just get everything that's the car. And so you can see kind of like for this, you're going to have some overlap. That's okay. You want to get everything that is in that box. And yeah, and then you just have to do it. Like I said, this was maybe not the best image to include originally because I'm going to have to do as many of these as I think accurately represent a vehicle. A small, distinct vehicle way back here, I mean, that's going to be a little tricky. I'm not sure where you draw that line, but what was recommended to me is if I can tell it's a very small car off in the distance, then I'm going to want to annotate it because it's going to get closer in a video and the model will eventually say like, oh yes, that's a car. I can easily see that. So the next one, see the annotations disappeared because I used annotation mode. This time I'm going to select interpolation mode, still using box, and we still got vehicle. And we're going to do this guy. And the other thing you want to consider is if you can see the license plate and the vehicle, you really need to annotate them both. It's going to be confusing to the model if you leave off some. And it can be a little tricky. Like, these ones, I can see that it's a license plate. It's very tiny, and I don't know if I can actually get a bounding box around it. But if you can get a bounding box around it and you can clearly tell there are lines that would signify a license plate, then you should probably annotate it. So it's, you might have to go back and forth and adjust, but that is what was recommended to me. And one way you can see if you don't have enough small images or large images is when you're training with the CLI, you can look at this output and you can see this -1. This means that whatever I was training with, and looks like it was the license plates, there wasn't enough large images, which means the vehicle wasn't taking up the entire screen. So that would be something like, this. That would be considered probably a large annotation. And similarly, there's the small. I think zero is fine. It just means that it's not performing well, but they are represented small and medium. And that it might be totally fine. But if you wanted your model to be able to detect objects that fill up the screen or objects that take up a very small part of the screen, then that's something that you'd want to consider maybe adding some extra data and retraining, like Todd showed yesterday in the webinar. And so this one you can see is some different training where it did have objects that filled up most of the page, a little bit like medium and small. It's not doing very well in this output, but it was just a kind of a checkpoint. So that's one thing to consider. And then we can see if we advance, it's moved. It's still there, and it's different. And then I can just pick it up and place it again. Now, at this point, the license plate probably, I don't know if I would keep that at such a small amount, but I wanted to show that you can keep it. And if you drag the box over the edge, it will just disappear, which is kind of a nice feature. Makes it easy for you to resize. And Cvat does not automatically save your work, so you should save your work whenever you think of it. Let's say in the next frame, okay, now the car and the license plate are definitely no longer there. You don't want to hit this X. That will get rid of your annotation completely, but what you do want to do is hit this little I, and that will take it away. And then later you can see, oh, it's still there, and then it's gone. Another thing that's handy if you want it, I used it when I was creating a different model, is this little output. You can see how many annotations you have in each class, and that's handy in the article that Todd wrote on data capture tips. It shows the importance of class or label balance. If you have 1,000 vehicles but only 2 license plates, it's obviously not going to perform well for vehicles with license plates or vehicles and license plates together. So you want to kind of make sure that as you're annotating, you can kind of keep track on what you have in terms of annotations per class. And so right now, 3 and 4, that's pretty well balanced, although it's just 7 annotations. So that's pretty much it for what you need for training. If you want to learn about other ones, you have these cuboid ones. Oh, wait. And then, I haven't done this one in a while. Yeah, and it still looks a little funny. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what this is really supposed to look like. But that's a cuboid one. You can do polygon. This is also not going to look great, but you can see you can just keep clicking your points and then stop creation. And that, obviously does not look great, but that's how you create a polygon. You can also do polylines. That's like if you're tracking a highway, I believe. If you want to do a box by 4 points instead of 2, you can change it there. And then points is like key points. So let's say I want to do, every wheel or something like that. Then if I was tracking wheels, that would be how I would do that. Okay, so another thing, once you've finished your data annotation, you're going to need to export it. If you do this dump annotations, it will only give you the annotations. It will give you the annotations in different formats. You can select those, but it won't export the images. I believe it will export a folder called an image set if it's for Pascal VOC. But what we do is we export as data set and then select Pascal VOC. And that will just download. And then that is what you'll use to train. It will be a zip format, and you want to keep it in a zip format. And then a couple things that I wanted to mention if you're training with Cvat. I did forget to mention that you'll need to create an admin account. So what you do the first time Cvat prompts you, if you have a Cvat account already, which I did, you can say, yes, I have a user, and then log in with your user. If you don't have a super user account, I'll paste this into the chat. So, how do I stop my share?
It's up at the top, around where the should be near the green button.
I just see our faces. Nope.
Yeah, because on mine it's right, kind of, well, actually on full screen it's over to the left. You'll see like a stop button. But usually it's floating around the center.
Oh, it's on my other page. That's where it is. Okay. Stop share. Here's this command. You create a super user, and then you can either give permissions to the account you created, or you can just log in as your super user admin account, and then you'll be able to create new tasks. So I'm sorry I forgot to mention that one. And then you can see up here, or at least I think I can see, I'm logged in as admin 3. And then a handy feature of that is that you can use this admin panel. And then you can manage tasks, and you can change labels there. So if I did want to change this to license plate, I could change it there. Or if I wanted to change this to cars, I could change it there, and then I would save. And then when I go back to my job, and you do need to save it beforehand. Otherwise, it will not update your labels, but you can see now it says cars and you can see it says license plate. So that's one way to change it. But of course, like I said, you have to still keep things original. If I had cars and trucks, I couldn't change them both to vehicle. Are there any features that you guys wanted to see on Cvat that I've forgotten about or just haven't shown? Nope.
Nobody's asking about it. There is one thing I do remember from Cvat. I don't know if you had a chance to play with this. It was kind of like semi-automated system that you could use for semantic annotation. So you could do actually a few key points per person, and it would actually find the rest of the person for you.
That's interesting.
I don't know if,
I don't know if I've tried that. I can try it if we'd like. Let's see.
I'll go to their
Ours.
the Cvat site to bring it up.
Polygon, create shape.
Yes, here it is. Semi-automatic segmentation is what they call it. No.
So you would do part of it?
Yeah, you just do part of it, and then you kind of get the rest here. I'm just going to post
no,
Cvat
that didn't work.
Semi-automatic segmentation. Then I'll show you.
Semi. What about that? That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Is it interpolation?
No, I think what it does is it uses some other model to help like finish. Here, I can share my screen just to show you what it
Yeah, here. I'll stop sharing.
And I'm just pulling up their YouTube video that kind of showcases this.
And yeah, that's another thing. On our documentation page, we have all the links to the Cvat documentation, and it's pretty extensive. So you can always go there for more details. Oh, and it looks like it's the new UI. Maybe that's why I couldn't figure it out.
It's. I think you have to go out a level out to enable it. But as you can see here, basically, so instead of like cutting out like you were showing every single like key point, is you literally only give it. I think you just designate 4 key points. You know, the top, bottom, left, right, and another model or some automatic system will go in and fill in the rest of the key points for that target that you're looking at.
Cool.
So I don't know how well it works outside of people, but that's definitely something worth playing with. Probably something we'll definitely try toying with in the future, because as you can see from their demo here, like the amount of time you save, at least when you're cutting out people. So David, this might be for you. If you're adding people, this will probably save you a good chunk of time.
That's true. Although I think for our model training, it has to be a bounding box. I don't know if that has to be like converted or something after, or
right.
But the interpolation mode would definitely save you a lot of time as well. And we're adding new model types all the time, so it's always good to know the different annotations out there. The other thing we could go over is how to sample videos if people are interested in that, using FFmpeg, unless people have questions or wanted to see some more stuff from Cvat beforehand.
I think showing the FFmpeg would be good. EP was asking earlier about annotating videos in general, so I think this.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We can do a new task. Here, I'll share my screen. We can do a new task, and you can annotate a video. Are you guys seeing the Cvat again?
Yep.
Okay. Save. Okay, so we can do a new task. It might take a second to upload a video. Let's say. Done, and then we'll do this guy, and that will upload. Okay, so in the meantime, No, where are we? Okay. Let's do.
Could you make the terminal window a little bit bigger, Lila?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
You can do a command plus, and that'll. Oh, there you go. Yep.
That looking a little better?
That's great.
Okay. Okay, so now we have all these movies. The command we're going to use, and again, we have on our data annotation guide. Real quick, I will post this here. This is the command I'm gonna. Oops. Oh, and it looks like that Docker command just went to you, Jason. Here's the Docker command. Sorry about that, guys.
I reposted it to the group, so it was fine.
You share desktop one. Okay, we're seeing the terminal again. So that's the command that I use in general, typically. So this ffmpeg is ffmpeg. Movie name, that's the name of one of these movies. This will do the rate of sampling. So 2 is 2 frames per second. If you did like 0.5 or 0.25, that would be 1 frame every 4 seconds, if I've done that math correctly. It would be 0.25 frames per second. So you can open up your video and see, eyeballing what you think, like, okay, how many, and you can do, I'm using QuickTime Player. That's really easy for Macs. I don't know for Linux or Windows what people would prefer. You can ask on maybe Discord or some of our other users, but you can see if you show the frames, then I can advance using my arrows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like, how many frames is it before I start to see some noticeable differences? And then you can kind of play around with that and the command and see what you want. But using 2 has worked for me usually, and it gets me probably more images than I want. And then I'll open them up, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'll open them up and I'll kind of trim out some that I feel like are redundant or didn't end up being a good shot. Like if I caught it like right here. Well, that's not that bad, but maybe like right
Hold
here.
on a sec. AB says he can't see any screen. Is that the case for everybody else? I'm able to see Lila's screen. Okay, David says he can.
We're okay, you think?
Well, I think most people can, but AB is unable to see your screen for some reason. AB, you may want to try try logging out and back in to see if that fixes the issue.
Yeah, I can try stopping and starting the share again if you think that would help.
Okay. No, I think you're fine on your end because I can see your screen and David can see
Okay.
us.
Any other questions right now?
Nope, just that technical issue.
Okay. Okay, nice. So yeah, so that's kind of the rough approximation. Maybe it would be better to tweak it a little bit here and there before just using 2. This QV is means video quality, which is a higher resolution, and if you use PNG, it will also be a higher resolution. So I did that because the first time I just used the defaults, no QV, and also this value 1 means the highest possible of all the video quality settings. So I think it goes up to like 31. I might be wrong on that. With 31 being the worst video quality. And so I don't know for sure what the defaults are, but the first time I did just a basic FFmpeg with like a 2 or something, the resulting images were really blurry. And I didn't realize it until I had already annotated like 40 of them. And I was like, I don't remember these looking so blurry in the video. So the drawback though is that when we were training this one, Todd mentioned it took a really long time, and I think that's because the images were so huge, because I selected them to be pretty huge. And I do think they get compressed a bit when they get exported from Cvat, but there might be a better middle ground where you have pretty clear images, but the file sizes aren't gigantic. And JPEG does compress them a bit and turn them blurrier anyways. Others might be more well-versed in the different file formats, and but I've just done this. It seems to get really high quality, and then, it hasn't been a huge issue for training. Training takes a while anyway, so if it adds a little bit of extra time, I don't typically mind, but that is a consideration if you guys have less memory or you want smaller file sizes. Maybe go on FFmpeg and see what those different trade-offs are. So what we'll do here is
Wait, hold on. So just to
yeah,
reiterate, so that quality setting, 1 is the highest and 31 is the lowest?
I'm pretty sure. I know it sounds a little weird, and I could be wrong about the 31, but I think that's correct.
Okay.
I could be wrong. It happens. It happens sometimes. More times.
We'll double check and we'll
We'll
post
double check it. Yeah, but if you don't use QV, it will be lower quality. Anyways, so there's that, and then this here, this is 4 decimal places. So if you have a longer video and you're sampling fairly frequently, you want to give yourself enough decimal places that, this is going to create an image for every sampling rate that you provided. So if I say 2 frames per second and my video is 10 minutes long, that's going to result in quite a lot of images, and probably get up past, well, I don't know, I'd have to do the math, but 4 decimal places should get you okay. But consider that if you have 5 decimal places or 6, it will just prefix with zeros. So if you don't care about how long the file size or the image name is, that might be a safer bet. But what I did is I just did 4, and that seems to work just fine. So that's what you do. You could have this say anything you want. It's probably a long one. We can just do Jason. Sorry, Jason, you're going to be the image names. And then you just enter, and it will start generating all those images, and you can see it's working here. And see it's starting to create them right here. And usually what I would do is I would separate these out into a different file so I could kind of keep track of what I'd done, but I did not do that here. You might want to do that though. And then this is probably a little too laborious for most people, but this is what I did. Open them all, not all of them, but a fair amount. And then I would just kind of click through and see what I had gotten. And this seems like an okay sample rate to me. The image changes enough between each frame that it's not duplicating the data, which is really not going to help the model at all. It's these images are probably different enough that it's okay. But maybe sometimes if the car slowed down and it was in the same place for a few frames, then I would just delete those ones. So that's probably not the most efficient way of doing it, but that's one way of doing it. You can also just do as we're going to do now and train using a video itself. And then see here what Cvat does is it just gives you them in frames. And so see now I probably wouldn't want to annotate every single one of these because it's a little tedious. But what you can do is use the interpolation mode. I don't think I'd want to do that for everyone because then they would be too close to the one previous. The image hadn't changed that much. So I would still end up having to unwatch the annotation and make a new annotation. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a more efficient way of doing that. But the idea here is that you'd pick interpolation. You would draw your bounding box. We'll just do, oh, that's not a great one. It's also very tiny. Sometimes you can zoom in the photo and try and get a better box. And then, the next one, you'd have to scoot it over. and then again, you know, so that's going to get still pretty tedious. And these images are really close together. They're not that different. So it's probably better to do like this and skip ahead. But then you can't use the interpolation mode because you don't want that annotation. That annotation would still be there in this frame, you see, even though I deleted it. So even if I moved it here in this frame that's like 10 frames ahead and save it, then when I go back the next frame, oh no, that did kind of work. But then I also have a lot of frames that are really similar, and that's not going to help so much. So what you would do is you would, sorry, our faces are right over that box. What you do is you could create an annotation, and that's going to be a license plate, isn't it? Vehicle. And then skip ahead and do another one. And skip ahead and do another one. So the way I like to do it is sample it ahead of time and just upload images that I think I'll want to do, and then use that interpolation where it looks more like this, and I still have that box, and I can just shift the box over, but I don't have to click through all of these different frames one by one. Yeah, so that's how you do it with a video though. And then when you export it, it will still export the way you plan to export. Yeah. And we can crack one of those guys open and see what it looks like. This is the sample data set that we provide you. So you can see it has the images and the annotations, and they're corresponding to each other in name. And you can see that they don't necessarily start at 1 or 2. I believe that's because we didn't annotate like the first frame. I don't know if Todd just picked out a certain subset and happened to exclude the first one and the second one, but the idea is that whatever your JPEG name is, the annotation has to correspond to it. So we can see that this is that image. Oh, it's huge. And then this is the annotation file that corresponds with it. So you have license plate, and these are the bounding boxes, the corners of the bounding box, vehicle, bounding box. So every annotation file corresponds to one image, and then there's different annotated objects within that image. So for every image, you'll have a pair, an annotation pair of an image and an annotation file. And if we have time, and are there any questions right now, or?
Yeah, there are a few questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, so first one from David W. Is there a current AI model for lane detection, like a road or a sidewalk? And he says, I believe LaneNet is not currently available in the model catalog, which is, I believe, correct. But he's asking if we have any plans to add that in the future.
I don't know specifically if a lane detection model has been added to the future plans, but I think they're interested in knowing what people want, and if that's something that they want, maybe they can add that in. I think it's some of the other model team on the Hacky Hour that they want to like type in or not, if they have more information on that. But I would say post it in Discord if that's something you're interested in. Do like a request a feature and see what the potential timeline or possibility of that is.
Yeah, so David, we'll keep you informed if that one is coming up. I'm hoping that we can send out a new summer like desired models survey. We sent one early in spring. We'll send out another one soon for everyone to kind of let us know which models you want most, and we'll work on creating that for everybody. We do have a second question from David Dodds. Instead of using actual pictures to train, is it possible to use a visual wireframe model as a kind of a hint for learning location of human fingers, like for pose sequences, especially tool grasping?
Like the images would be of wireframes, or I mean, you do have to upload all the training is done on some kind of image file. Like a, you know, you export a wireframe as an image, that kind of, I mean, am I not understanding correctly?
So David, are you asking if like you could use like a synthetic, it's basically synthetic data, right? Like 3D wireframe information to train a computer vision model to look for. See, I don't know how well that transfers over.
Yeah, yeah, you know, the thing is like, it has to, the model would be able to detect it. Let's say you had a JPEG that had, you know, like a 3D skeleton sort of looking like a model of a hand. It would be able to detect those models of a hand, but I don't know if it would be able to detect my hand based on that model. I'm not, that's not something I've really looked into. I don't know if others would have more insight. That might be a good question for Discord as well. If you want a little bit extra, maybe somebody else on the team would have a better or more comprehensive answer. My guess is that the model would have difficulty recognizing hands. I mean, even, you know, human hands, think like if you have very small hands or like child hands or large hands, if you wanted it to detect all kinds of hands, you'd probably need a pretty varied data set. So I would think that if you uploaded a specific type of wireframe, then your model, if it was trained enough, would detect those images, but not be able to like extrapolate to be like, oh, that's also a hand if it was presented with like a human's hand. Is that the kind of question you meant?
Maybe David, do you want to jump online to ask us in person? I don't know if it might be easier to ask that.
Yeah, we can. I think we'd have to unmute him maybe.
Yes, but kind of waiting to see if David gets back to us in chat or does the hands up thing, and then I think the system lets us unmute him. No, David might have. Oh, there we go. Okay, so all right, David. Oh, I guess Steve has some input too.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, what I was thinking about is when we do pose, for example, that the program is able to produce straight lines like segments, bone segments, basically. Um, is it possible in some way to go backwards from the bone segment diagram, or I'll call it a graph structure, uh, to somehow map that to the limbs of a person? Or do you have to have only the actual picture input to train from?
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, that's a good question. So I mean, definitely the system as we've got it works really well with actual images. I'm not sure how we would be able to transfer the data from a wireframe where like it's visually very different, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the bounding box. So for the current model training, that annotation drawing it around the object gives you those bounding boxes, and the model will just look at the area enclosed by those boxes. Um, so it's just whatever the content is in those boxes. I don't know. Steve, did you want to say anything extra or have any additional insight? I think that the images themselves, you have to look at it as like just like pixels. You know, these pixels look like other pixels that it will get
Yeah.
when it's being
So,
used.
so Lila, I think we're on LaneNet in that response. Is that correct?
Like the lines on the highway.
Yeah. So the lines at LaneNet is what we call an instant segmentation model. At least the things that I've seen on it. We are going to support instant segmentation on a runtime this quarter. It should be coming out in the October or September timeframe. And be part of our system. So we'll be able to run the pre-trained model on that particular architecture. We currently don't have right now, we only support object detection and mobile SSD in model retraining. And right now we don't have it road mapped in for either instant segmentation and semantic segmentation. These are interesting. They will have their own annotation tools and so forth. Also too, on either one of those models, they're quite heavyweight. So you would need something like if you ran it on your laptop, you'd be seeing second inferencing times, right? So you need to run it on a heavy GPU system, like if you're doing Edge, an Xavier device, and it would probably, or it's TX2, and it would probably have to be compiled down to TensorRT. So we need we're working on that whole flow for object detection right now in the mobile SSD. And then we'd have to get that whole tooling set in place for that to be a what I would call a production quality system. So hopefully that helps. It's a long answer, but.
That's great. Does that answer your question a little bit better, David?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to bring AB on. AB's got his hand raised. I think he might have a question.
Thanks, Jason. Actually, I had two questions. One question was related to Cvat. Just to summarize my understanding, so there's a two modes, the annotation and interpolation, right? So if, for example, I'm doing the data annotation on a video, so as Lila was showing, the car is coming in front, you tag the license plate, okay, and I'm in the interpolation mode. Then I move to the next frame. The car is moving forward, but the bounding box is, sorry, I'm hearing some background noise.
David, I'm going to mute you. I think might be.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the car will move forward, and after that, the bounding box will remain behind, right? Because it was in the previous frame.
Right.
Right, and then if I just use the hide button in the objects column in the right-hand side corner to hide that annotation. Suppose if I don't want to give you an example, I don't want to annotate the license plate in that frame, but I only want to annotate the car in that frame. So
Yeah.
I will have to do that, right? So in case I want to do, so am I saying it right that I have to do that, or I have to go to the other mode, the annotation mode?
No, I think you said it correctly, if I understand correctly. So this is kind of what you say. We've done it with interpolation,
Okay.
and we have the license plate in the vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say it's here, you mean?
Yeah. I cannot see the license plate, right? Correct.
Right. Exactly. So you would just unwatch the license plate.
Okay.
And then you would have your car here, and you'd fix your car. And this is with the caveat that, you know, you'd have to fix the ones preceding it. I just wanted to get to the point that you had questioned about exactly. So now you have just your vehicle, and that's fine. You can save that. And then eventually when the vehicle gets out of here, then, you know, probably even further. Well, this video, if they're stuck at a light. But eventually, if this car moves out of the frame, then you would unwatch this one as well. So you can do it at any time. And when you still want to be mindful of annotating too many cars without license plates, or, you know, I don't think you'd ever annotate a license plate without a car, but you can definitely stop watching one and keep watching the other, and across multiple frames even.
So if when in particular frame, say in frame 4, if I hide that annotation, it will not progress it to frame 5, 6, 7. Are you saying
Right.
that?
And if it came back, like let's say this car was back here and then this car in front moved and all of a sudden you could see that license plate again, you would have to make a new annotation for it. And that's fine too. It's not like every image will be its own file. So it's okay. The interpolation mode just makes it easier for you to annotate. If you unwatch an annotation and then rewatch it again, I don't think you can. I don't think it will even pop up here.
Okay.
See, like the license plate is gone now. I can't bring it back. But even if you could, it would bring it back for every frame that preceded it.
Yeah.
So you just make a new annotation, and you can use interpolation again. And even if you unwatch it the next frame, I feel like interpolation is worth it because it's the same amount of effort on you, the user, and if you unwatch it, you unwatch it. Otherwise, if you use annotation every time, then you're always going to have to create a new object the next frame. So yeah, you can unwatch it and then create a new one. So let's see, it's back and then it's gone. Well, this isn't a good one, but the idea is that if this popped back in the frame, I would just create a new shape and then there would be technically for the license plate that belongs to this car, there might be 5 objects created over the course of my annotation, but the computer doesn't care, Cvat doesn't care, the annotation file doesn't care. It's just when you see it in the image, you want it to line up on the box, and if it ever goes out of the image frame, then you want to unwatch it. And then if it comes back, you just create a new object and track it again and stop tracking it when it disappears again.
Okay, yeah, I think I should play with this tool a little bit because I'm seeing this tool for the first time.
Yeah.
I've never used this tool. Yeah, the second question was related to models, right? Suppose if any model is not in the model catalog, and if I want to, in the training webinar, you showed the Mobile Night SSD based model, right? So since that is part of your catalog, I could add that model as a private model and then I could reuse in the program. Suppose if I want to use a model from say Intel's Model Zoo, okay, and which is not a part of which is and I select a model which is not part of your public model catalog, but I'm sure that it can work using what to say, the NCS2 stake or something with OpenVINO. Can I use, so what work do I need to do like without waiting for you guys to include it in the model catalog of yours?
I think, Steve, if you're okay to answer that
Yeah,
one.
I'm still here.
Okay.
So it's on that. So we have a section called My Models. And in those, you can load up the Intel models. We support that. They will have an XML and bin file to them.
Exactly, yes.
And you can upload those and we can process that through our inferencing engine, as long as you have the stick on there. So we support them. We call them DLDT framework. It's an OpenVINO framework, but it's a bin and XML, and we support that. And a matter of fact, we have that model type up in pose estimation.
Okay.
So
is there a link or something I can read through that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, David, if you can show that, or Lila, where that section is in the catalog. I do get. So can you guys quickly show that real quick where it is in the catalog so you can see it? Or actually in projects, I should say.
Yes.
Or somebody give me screen control. Maybe I can do it.
Can you see my screen? Is it showing the dashboard?
Yeah, but it's still loading. Oh, there it goes.
Wait,
yeah, so with projects, go to models, and then see where it says upload a model?
Yeah.
And so you can upload a model tied to it. And if you go to framework, hopefully they have it in, because I noticed they DLDT, and that will get you in. And then you just, you can set whatever you need to do. Is it object detection, pose estimation, something like that, framework. And then you just have to know your different hyperparameters. You can upload your text files and everything else like that you need for labeling.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh,
that's where
great.
it is. Yeah. So you just start a project and then you can start to add the custom models.
Okay. I think this information will be part which I think they have the README in their Git repository. And if we don't know, I think we can put a query in there.
Yeah, it's been a while since I looked, but they used to have it. So
okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Sure. And then we'll be supporting different, what we call pipelines coming out soon. One for an iCloud camera. In about 2 weeks, they're going to have a seminar with us. They're industrial camera that had, and they're the original people that created the Myriad chipset, and then Intel bought it. They have a camera that we're going to be working closely with, and it will use that format of models, and it executes on the device. And then of course the Oak D will use a similar type of the same format. So I'm glad you brought this up.
Yeah, actually, I would be really grateful if you have something related to OAK-D in your thing, because I have OAK-D with me,
Okay.
and I'm working on a problem statement for the competition. So definitely a pipeline for that would be great, because currently we are using the SDK with using the depth AI SDK. Things are not easy because it's pretty much, that is also it's also in development stage as well. So we have to go back and forth. But yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So
we should, the October is our time frame for that.
Okay.
I know,
October,
I'm sorry, it's a little late. We're just backed up with a bunch of stuff right
now. Yeah, because October, the competition is over, so.
Yeah, I know. I wish we had it earlier.
Okay, no worries. No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay, no worries. Thank you very much.
Sure, and I don't know if well, yeah, I'm not sure we can get to it before then, so I don't
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. No, I plan to do everything finalized in the Docker container myself, because it's easy to transport. But yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Thank you, AB.
Yeah, good
Okay, I think we got one last question from David W. He's asking, using AI tools and models, can I send a message to another application when an object has been detected? So for example, if you see a person, send a signal to your bot to turn left or stop. I guess I can answer that question. The answer is yes. I'll post a link to a blog for communicating using TCP sockets. I think that was written by Eric and maybe Taiga and Dre. But also you can directly import the like GPIO or whatever robotics libraries right as a requirement within the Docker container. So you could have your robot controlling code packaged with the CV detection. So you could go both routes, right? So you could have the detection container send information out either through TCP or an HTTP call, or you could package it all together into one application. So you've got both options. Yes, and MQTT. I haven't tried that myself yet, but I think, yeah, you can do that. Cool. Okay, so we're a few minutes past, but does anyone have any last questions before we let you all go? Let's give it a few seconds. No? Okay. All right. In that case, I will close this up. I want to thank everyone for showing up. Thank you, Lila, for a wonderful Hacky Hour presentation. Just want to let folks know that next Hacky Hour will be next week. Will be hosted by Steve, and he'll be covering dlib and facial key points, I believe. So if you're interested in basically underlying facial technologies, you should definitely show up for next Thursday's panel. Okay. I think that's it. All right, cool. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Bye, Lila.